How's everyone doing today? Good morning, good afternoon, maybe good evening, depending on where you are at in the globe. Welcome to today's Brand Innovators Livecast series. My name is Ryan Culp, and I'm the Senior Director of Content and Community here at Brand Innovators, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be serving as the MC for today's C-Suite and Marketing Leadership Summit. Marketing, as it was originally intended in its fullest, truest, and greatest form, is more important today than it ever was before. The world is filled with innovation in products, services, technologies, solutions, business models, etc. And these new offerings must be brought to the market and commercialized in order to help generate revenue and profit for your organizations. Now, marketing is about connecting the right customers to the right products or services, and it helps our sales teams and people throughout our company think from the outside in about what is being offered and help convey its value in customer-centric ways. And look, it's not easy, it's not difficult, but we have to talk about ways in which we can unleash the full power of marketing. And it's absolutely critical to do so in today's time. And we are lucky because today we have some incredible marketers from all across the industry, from Cody to Tiger Connect, Expedia, and a lot more. So please be sure to ask your questions and listen in. You can lean into your screen, you can lean back. Maybe you're in your office and you have some fluorescent lighting, maybe up for fluorescent lighting in your actual home, but wherever you are, make sure you lean in and pay attention because you're not going to want to miss this. And we're going to be live for the majority of our sessions today. And we want to encourage all of you to use that chat box at the bottom of your screen and discuss what you're hearing with your peers. And you can also use that Q&A box at the bottom to ask questions to our guests, to our speakers, and we'll be sure to get to those during our live Q&A segments. Now, before we kick off for the live cast of the day, we'd like to share just a short little sizzle reel that we've put together from our recent media buying summit, so you can kind of hear what we've been discussing at our other events.
We are thrilled to have you joining us for our latest and greatest marquee event, the Brand Innovators 2021 Media Buying Summit.
Welcome, everyone. Let's get started.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited about this show. All right, so I'm back.
I have two dogs too, so they might want to join the party later.
We have a truly fantastic program planned for you with what I would say is an epic group of speakers, senior media buyers, and marketing leadership from some of the world's biggest brands.
We looked at media more holistically than ever. Consumers don't necessarily know the difference between a paid side of the house versus an influencer, creative versus organic. To them, it all looks like your brand, it's your advertising.
It's another thing when you have a brand that's 50 years old that people think of as a brick and mortar retailer, and you've got to figure out how you're going to tell a story to get them to rethink and create a moment of reconsideration for your brand.
So again, how do we use data? We looked at regionally, where do we have inventory? Because for a while, we stopped making cars and we started making ventilators and masks. First of all, there was a lot of people who really wanted cars because it's your own personal space. Spending really went way back up. And so like at the end of the year, we were back at like our normal budget levels and launching the Escalade.
What we decided that we were going to define content commerce as shortening the distance between inspiration and purchase. It does away with that kind of multi-step, lengthier sequence of product searching, researching. And I think what's really interesting about this space is that these kind of micro moments of discovery are happening more and more in your social feed and through short form video that you're interacting with.
There's just too much now, too much clutter. And we've gone from 30-second ads to now 15-second ads and 6-second ads. So I feel like that is an opportunity for us to reset the balance here. And I feel like that's a huge opportunity and to create, I think, a much better ad experience.
I will always recommend that you want to have the people who work on your business to be as close to dedicated on your business as you possibly can. If you know that they're working for you, then their priorities aren't split.
Being on the streets, connecting with our consumers is critical. So we have a division structure that enables and empowers our local teams to make decisions based on what is right for their market.
Like many other brands, we just had to adapt to make sure that we're meeting customer needs, as well as their changing media consumption habits, right? So fortunately for us, last year, our various creative agencies and media agencies and partners were just very accommodating as we were trying to navigate those challenges.
I think 2021 will be a very interesting year as we all kind of learn and understand the new dynamics at play and how they impact all of our respective businesses.
Well, we are going to make our own memories today because that's what we do here at Brand Innovators. We like to make little moments, little snippets of what you can take away and bring back to your organization and start to implement within your own business. And so I would love to bring to our virtual stage our first guest. We have Jackie Staub, who's the head of national accounts with Sephora, Luxury Beauty North America with Coty, and our moderator, Rachel Bennington, who's the VP of CPG of Ground Truth. Let's see if we can't get our guests together for this first conversation. I see we've got Jackie on board here. Jackie, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. And I see Rachel has joined us as well. Rachel, how are you today?
Doing well. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing very well. I'm sharing the virtual stage with the two of you right now. But no one wants to hear me talk anymore because I've done a little bit of that already. What we would love to hear, Jackie and Rachel, let's turn things over to the two of you to kick off our C-Suite and Marketing Leadership live cast today. So I will turn our virtual stage over to you both.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks, Ryan. All right, I just got the notification. You got the recording going as well. So this is great. Jackie and I had the chance to catch up last week and would love to just let you guys all in on some of the conversation. I know I learned a lot, and in these changing times, I find it so helpful to get together with other leaders and continue to talk about innovation and the things that are top of mind. It helps to inspire. It helps us to stay in that mode of serving our clients best when we're hearing from leaders like this. So yeah, Jackie, let's hop in. And one of the things that we talked about was this transition stage that we're in from really being in our homes and wearing masks and how that's impacted the beauty industry as a whole. And so one of the stats that we pulled out, we kind of talked about and chatted around, was that lipstick sales are up 80% year over year, but now especially as mask restrictions are lifting. Talk to us a little bit about how is Coty seeing this trend? Are there any other categories that you're seeing a spike in sales in terms of Coty Beauty? And chat a little bit about that.
It's interesting because I've seen this all over the news recently, and I'm a big news consumer. So, there's been a lot of chat in Forbes and CNN about lipstick trends being up, but I kind of laugh because it's overall sales trends being up right at the moment. So it's hard to really, narrow in to necessarily, lipstick on its own. I would say that the general trend with lipstick is, yes, we are seeing, sales up. And I would say that, in terms of recent category spike sales over the pandemic, a lot of people turned towards skin. And I think when this, Zoom era of no makeup looks are kind of being more prevalent, we've seen less people going to events and functions and social gatherings. And so there, the increase in skincare and the focus on skin has really been where it is. But that's not to say that we've shied away from makeup either. People are at home, and in particular with Coty, I work on Gucci Beauty with Sephora, and we started the pandemic with a whole gondola of lipsticks. And we just had to pivot. And we galvanized sales. We were the number one in most categories at our launches. I think what you're seeing though right now is just there's been a slight shift in what types of lipsticks people are buying at the moment. So we've just launched a new lipstick called Glow and Care, which is a really light shine sheer coverage. So I think you're seeing people step away from the heavy look and wear into more, cleaner looks. But I won't discredit the fact that, you're talking about lipsticks and whether their trends are kind of are we seeing more prevalent? I think it's also fragrance sales. I mean, Coty dominates the market in terms of fragrance. And, in terms of the pandemic, we've seen, fragrances being a small way for, consumers to kind of treat themselves. So it's like a way to kind of step into your Zoom world as we are. And I can smell myself right now, as the pandemic can continue, as I think that people will continue to dress up that way, particularly when they're getting, back to the office.
Yes, I completely agree. And I mean, I know we chatted through this too, just even looking at your own experiences as a woman in the marketplace of the importance, very quickly sharing with our teams of ways you still want to wake up and put on your best self. And if that means a little bit of mascara, or if that means a full skincare routine plus all of the makeup things, then you do that. But it really does help when working from home or even transitioning back to office to get in that mindset. And it's, I think that it's amazing to me how makeup and fragrance and the things that you're talking about helps create that mindset and connection. So I love that. One other thing that we talked about too, and I know at Ground Truth, and being focused and centered around what our clients need was rapidly changing through the pandemic. It was like one day we had clients that were like, Rachel, we are struggling with logistics and supply issues. Like, so we're on the back end trying to solve those problems. How can we take our media and figure out how to create efficiencies for our clients and shift in those ways? So we were launching products to be able to connect shoppers and drive sales at retailers in those meaningful ways in real time, as fast as possible. So for you, in new product releases and hearing your shoppers and wanting to connect with them in meaningful ways, did the pandemic help move up any new product releases or launches that maybe you weren't anticipating or scheduled for this past year?
I think the biggest shift we actually saw for us, at least, was not necessarily the shift in releases. In fact, we just kept accelerating with the plans that we had. What we did see is purchase behavior change. And the biggest shift that's happened is people are obviously consuming more on digital, being their purchases are made through digital. So, digital media becomes more important. The way we look at the changing behaviors in terms of what we put online in terms of our product pages, the customer experience there becomes so much more important. So, videos, making unique assets. I go through and check, and like I'm a consumer, and say, if I was buying a lipstick online, just for the sake of using lipstick as the example, am I understanding what that's going to look like on my face? Do I truly know what that color is like? Can I get a sense of the formulation? So like, can I have a virtual experience that's sincere, that essentially converts me to a purchase? So that's where, asset creation and digital media is becoming so much more important than it was. I think we had saw it happening before the pandemic, but even more accelerated right now. And I think that that's not going to change. I think that what will be really interesting now is, we've seen the acceleration happen across the board, and whether that can, when brick and mortar starts to open again, as it has, we're starting to see that digital prevalence starting to happen in store, with people more, familiar with QR codes, et cetera. And, whether or not it's, mostly online, or whether it's still, I think it'll still accelerate online, but whether the purchase behavior is mostly online and where that ends up being will be an interesting space to watch. But in terms of launches, we accelerated them across the board. Luxury brands were so important through the pandemic, surprisingly enough, even though there was a drop of income for some people. But it's really just, the shifts have been things like more of complexion, et cetera, where we saw acceleration. And we did launch foundation through that time, and did exceptionally well in our bronzers too.
That's great. Yes, absolutely. And, even though I felt like with the pandemic, those winter months, you're inside, but you wanted your skin glowing. And so I definitely could see how bronzers would be on the rise during that time. That's fantastic. Were there any products or innovations that you felt like you needed to shift and put on the back burner as you were kind of shifting in real time to what was happening?
No, we didn't actually move one launch. So, I think in terms of, launches, they've all stuck to plan. And we've delivered. And I think we wanted to accelerate, coming beyond lip and moving into kind of a full face a look very quickly and service a client, because there was a lot of demand there. I mean, people love, if we're talking just color, people love Gucci. So they're wanting to purchase it, rapidly and wanting more of a selection. So we accelerated.
That's awesome. And with that acceleration too, and, thinking about, in my terms of business for Ground Truth, being a leading mobile location company and performance-based in terms of trying to prove out sales and performance, we talked a little bit about the screens that were involved. And I know one of the trends that we definitely saw with consumers was making the most of streaming. And I know even many of us talk about how many of you were already streaming this morning or have been streaming during meetings, and connecting with CTV and OTT. So in terms of advertising and assets, did you feel like you leaned in any one way more than another during this pandemic, or saw that trend within, Cody's advertising as well?
It's so interesting, this question too, because yes is the answer, but you can answer it as a customer too. I mean, what I did see them I'm going to talk very broadly, but what we did see the prevalence of is a huge engagement with TikTok. And in terms of a live stream like we are today, I mean, there were ways that we were able to do virtual events with Sephora where we were able to educate the customers and be able to reward them by essentially, using your points to come and get a reward by education of doing your looks. And so many people had the time to be able to, be engaged with teaching themselves. Maybe they're on their to-do list was teaching themselves how to, do better makeup looks through the pandemic. But I would say in sort of media, offerings and what we were churning out, I think pretty much 100% of what we were doing shifted to digital in terms of media buying and planning. But then, the typical and, the 10 years ago clicks that were happening, they changed forms too. And so I think really the emergence of TikTok and interesting media forms. I think we look to China a lot for so many reasons, which we can talk about a little bit more for inspiration. But I think it's just, the types of media are definitely changing. I don't know about streaming other than for the education point of view, but definitely, new tools. Virtual try-ons and how we could, do things, accelerate things in a different way and partnering with new and different partners. I mean, Sephora's first to market on a lot of things that they do. So, we were the first to test and learn with a lot of their new kind of digital platforms for sure. And it mostly had to do with kind of shopping carts and ways to be able to capture audiences and convert them to sales.
Yes.
I think that's where the focus has ended up being.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in terms of planning for next year, I see that trend continuing of how can we make that more of a seamless approach from creating media that's meaningful and connecting with shoppers, consumers in the right way at the right moments, but also making it seamless for purchase. And so as you're planning for this next year, what types of trends do you feel like came up during the pandemic that you are planning and thinking will continue into this next year?
It's interesting because again, I in terms of the trends on product or media or both?
Both. Yeah.
Both. So I think you'll see this prevalence of skincare looks continue, like lighter shades for sure. I think like dewy kind of soft glows you'll start to see continue. I feel like we're going to see huge spikes in sales towards the end of the year. So, capitalizing on that for sure. And how do we continue to engage the consumer, and, in a very narrow way and reach her in a very kind of targeted way.
Yes, I definitely agree. And speaking with our clients that we're partnering with on their media, I know it's been kind of this almost polarizing thoughts. You've got one side that's saying, consumer spend as a whole is going up in this back half of the year because people want to get out, they want to spend money, and they're ready to kind of treat themselves even more. Maybe they've found that new job, or they've gotten that promotion now that the economy is opening back up. So they're saying maybe we're going to pull back on advertising. But where we see our clients leaning in and doing well is this is our time. We're going to get ahead. We're actually going to launch new products. We're going to grab their attention and do exciting things. And I feel like when I look at Cody and I look at all of the things that you're doing, you guys tend to be trendsetters and the first in the winners in those types of ways. So is there any kind of things that you can share with us about back half that you're excited about?
I'm just excited about how much we're going to sell back half. That's the number one thing for me. I mean, in terms of accelerating, it's a rapid speed of launches that are happening. And, I'd love to say there are some major launches happening towards the end of the year. A massive one with Sephora. You'll see a lot of stuff coming rapidly on Gucci. I think, it's for me, what I'll start to just, pepper into is the world of cross-selling. We have fashion brands that, sell fragrances and makeup and so what does the world of cross-selling look like? And how do, you get a consumer to think of an omni buy and increase their basket size. So, you think of a lipstick purchase with a fragrance purchase, with a piece of clothing, maybe in a store. And that, Sephora is now launching within Kohl's. Which is another very interesting topic to talk about. But, where is the consumer going to be shopping, and that interesting behavior coming towards the end of the year and what's coming out there. But we have some major launches happening around September, October, and holiday period. And I just think that, I can't give anything away,
of course,
but look out for it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, with the company as a whole, there's so much incredible things going on. It's just a really nice time to be in beauty, and a really nice time to work with, brands like Gucci and retailers like Sephora, because they are doing so well and have pivoted so fast with strategy.
Absolutely. In terms of strategy, also, I think the messaging has changed. And so when we look at the way that we're talking to consumers and shoppers, that has also shifted and will continue to shift in real time. I know that that's always the challenge of brands, but how do you feel like Cody has adapted to that messaging, and what are some of the things that they're thinking about when talking to shopper consumer?
Relevancy. Like for sure, relevancy, what's meaningful to a customer and where are they and what are they doing? I think consumer behavior is more important than ever, and making that super targeted, which I said earlier too, but I think it's all about customer relevancy.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And, and I think one thing too with relevancy that we're helping bridge the gap with at Ground Truth is that location-based piece is still more relevant now more than ever, because you've had this behavior for this last year of maybe you've been in home, you've been quarantining, you've really been trying to limit your exposure. And now that the rise of the vaccine and other things makes people more comfortable getting out and about, you want to understand those behaviors. Are they new behaviors? Where are they going now that maybe they've never been before? And what are those new patterns that we're seeing out of these shoppers to be able to connect with them? So in terms of insights also, what are the things that Cody's looking at in terms of trying to understand that behavior?
I think we look at China for a lot of the consumer trends. I mean, what you talked about, location accuracy, it's not something I've seen a huge deep dive into at the moment, because we do a lot of more national media and awareness, and then we work on trade marketing, I would say, for the most part. But, the topic as a whole in the marketing community is so interesting. When you talk about location-based targeting, push notifications and things like that, to me, it really does floor me, the amount of intelligence that now has gone into the digital world. Where, I can either talk about something and the Alexa in my house will pick up and it's suddenly on my Instagram, or, I may go into a store or search something online and, it's come up on my phone again. So I really think the intelligence behind those types of mediums will definitely be deeper dove into. I think, we partner a lot. I think we talked a little bit about our pre-conversation about how we partner with, companies externally. And it really is a partnership about, Sephora generating ideas, or media partners generating ideas, or our internal community generating ideas. It's really where, those trends are going and being discussed is where our focus is at the moment.
Yes, absolutely. And which is right on par with relevancy and what you're talking about, using those insights to really meet those shoppers, consumers where they're at in a relevant way. And, with what we do too, and discovering what those trends are. I know with Instagram and social listening and things like that we've talked about, sometimes it is kind of, I think that our today's shopper has gotten almost a little bit conditioned to having things handed to them. The other day I opened up and I was looking for luggage for an upcoming business travel, which, is a whole new thing now, the trying to get back into business travel, and had just even loosely mentioned to my husband and looking for luggage. And then, several hours later, being able to see those ads pop up within Instagram that have new luggage. And so, using that as kind of tools to be able to get what you need and in real time. So that's been a big shift in trends. So how can vendors and partners help you more in thoughtful ways, or other than with just media executions, but in general, how are you working with vendors that you find to be most helpful in being able to serve that end shopper and consumer?
I think the business with any partner, and we talked about this before, is just that it's a partnership. There's more than one person involved. So the insights in terms of our vendors and partners giving us intelligence data, or any intelligence ideas, the way they challenge our ideas to fuel a better business is a key theme that I think is so important with partnerships with vendors. And other, agency partners, I would say, there's so many ideas to galvanize a business. Media is just I could say half, but I think even just a quarter of it. It pools the fish, as we talked about before, in terms of the blanket, awareness play. But the trick is always, how do you catch the fish, to convert them to a sale? And to me, that's always come down to the 4 principles of marketing, which people forget about because they spend so much time talking about the promotion. You have to have the fundamentals of a good product. Like, why has Gucci done so well this year with launching, beauty? Because they created an incredible brand that has a very loyal following, and then they put all their wonderful intelligence into product formulation, and, and then it comes to the right price and the right placement alongside the promotion. So if you don't have that perfect kind of formula in place, you're never going to win. So how can vendors and partners partner best with you? To me, I bring the product and a bit of the price and partnership too, but it's they help a lot with the placement and the promotion, and by bringing a lot of ideas to the table. And you were talking about media earlier, which again, I would say you're bringing the intelligence and the excellence when it comes to new ways of media. Our partners are coming to us all the time with ideas of how to play in a new media world. And we carve out a certain amount of budget and time for what we call test and learn. And sometimes the tests are amazing, and we see rapid sales as a result of that. And sometimes the tests, they didn't do very well, but it's I learned from a previous leader of mine, if you're going to fail cheap and fail fast. Recover, get over it, and move on to the next, So, and part of that is all holding hands together as a team, and when you fail, you're failing together too. And you pat yourself on the back, and then you get up and you move on.
Yes. I think that's such valuable advice too. I know that Brand Innovators as a whole has a lot of audience that is new to maybe shopper marketing or marketing in general. And so being able to hear from somebody at your level, what you're thinking about and ways to partner with vendors, I think that's such great advice. I know Ground Truth recently, we brought our team for our first offsite since the pandemic here to Bentonville, Arkansas, and thinking about our suppliers that supplied to Walmart, which again, different retailers than your luxury brands, but even as simple as doing a store walk and understanding the 4 P's of marketing, like you said, understanding that placement. What are the challenges to find that product that shoppers might be having or consumers might be having that we can help use our technology to bridge to be able to get them there easier or raise awareness in a different way or a meaningful way? And what challenges does that product have in terms of placement? Maybe it's on the very top shelf and it's harder for people to reach or even to notice. So I love that you brought that up, because those basic fundamentals, if we as vendors really truly are thinking about you as a brand and who you're trying to reach in those challenges, and we bring you ideas that are based on those and forward thinking and test and learn, then you're right, it's going to continue to be valuable and relevant to serving you best. So
that makes me stand at the end of my seat, because those ideas is what I really get excited about. And truly I do, because there's two themes that came out while we were talking. One is the sense of objectivity. You can't discredit the fact that someone coming from outside essentially has the most amount of objectivity, because you navel gaze so much towards your business. So you give an idea and you may think it's a bad one, but it's probably genius because you have the objectivity. Yes. That people working maybe for years and don't have anymore. The second thing, and I really express this because you talked about a lot of people being new to the industry. I mean, grassroots, what I had learned in the first part of my career as a marketer, because I started in marketing and now I'm in sales, is that you need to understand your business. And if you do not fundamentally have a commitment to understanding your business, you're never going to be successful at your job. Yeah. Hands down. And, in the first few years of my career, I was asked to go in the call center because I worked in telecommunications way back when, and go into a store and sell the product. And I thought, no way, why would I do that? And, I had to do it in terms of this kind of university training world. And to this day, I still do it. And it's part of the fundamentals of what Cody does. We do store tours all the time. Our CEO is out there. Everybody's out there, just first of all, to build the relationship with people out there. Second of all, there is nobody smarter than the people in our field, truly. I know some of my field people may be watching right now, but in my past life and some of my jobs, I have gone out and learned more about what works and what doesn't work by talking to the consumer or talking to people who are in stores every day. I will give an example of a brand that I used to work on, but, there was, a demand for brushes, makeup brushes. And one of the salespeople said, we need brushes. And, I was like, I don't know if we can launch brushes. And of course we came out with a brush and, it really sold very, very well and capitalized on a lot of sales. So that intelligence, if there's one thing that you do early on in your career and continue to do, it's learn from the audience. Because even from a marketing level, we had brochures in markets and we were using them as selling tools. And when I tried to sell to a consumer, I was like, this is awful. So it's like, don't get too close to what you think is an ivory tower, get in the weeds, because you need to see that will fuel your decision-making and make you so much more empowered and be a better partner if you're talking about relationships.
Yes, absolutely. And in that mindset shift, I'll say with CTV and OTT, one of our newest product offerings, yes, it came from talking with consumers, talking with who we were likely trying to reach and some of their pain points. And I know one of the pain points was when they experienced when marketers bulk buy. So you're watching a show and every single commercial is the exact same commercial for that 30 seconds and you can't skip it, you can't go anywhere. And it leads to to frustration. And so at Ground Truth, we kind of took that insight of this is a pain point for the customer, that in-shopper consumer, and how can we make sure that we're not doing that so that they're having a positive experience with brand and with the product. So I think that's so valuable, just to what you said of listening to, you can never forget who is the actual customer and what are they thinking about, what matters to them, what's frustrating to them, and using that to kind of guide decisions also.
Yeah, because it's like, don't assume that everyone does things the same way that you do, first of all. And second of all, don't ever assume while you're sitting in the back that like that people are behaving the way you think they're going to behave, because chances are they're not. Or even like my example earlier, and going to a website and I'm like, I can't buy a product. How's a customer going to buy a product?
Right.
So it's simple. You don't need to leave your house sometimes, but you have to do it across all facets.
Yes, absolutely. I know that we could talk for hours because Jackie, I love visiting with you, and I always learn so much too. And I know that the audience has questions, so feel free to put those in the chat, and we will get to those, and want to make sure that we can answer those. So any other questions that you all have, feel free to go ahead and put those in now. And I know we just have a few minutes left, but I just wanted to thank Jackie too. I know that I've learned a lot from you, and we've gotten a chance to visit. I know that even some of the things we talked about last week, I went back to my team and was like, Jackie brought this up, and this is a really good point. We need to think about this in this way. And again, with partnership with vendors as well is so valuable when partnering. Ground Truth as a whole really wants to make sure that we are providing value. And so being able to have you share honestly and openly feedback is invaluable to teams like ours. So thank you for that. Ryan, I saw you hop on there. Was there any other questions or anything that you wanted us to cover in Brand Innovators that we didn't already?
Nothing here on my end. Everything is tip top. Would love to obviously continue this discussion, but we do have a few other ones that we need to roll into. So next time let's book an hour instead.
We can chat for an hour, no problem.
Yes, especially about all things beauty.
Who doesn't like a good lipstick?
That's right. Thank you so much for having us. And Jackie and I are both on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out and connect with us. We would love to hear the things that you're thinking about, challenges you have, and would love to connect with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Jackie. And for our audience back at home, sit tight because we've got another session that we're going to be jumping into right now. It's actually a conversation we had a couple days ago with Jim Banister, who's the CPO or Chief Product Officer with Raisin, and our moderators, Boris Krasinski, the Regional President in Northern Europe with Adform. We're going to listen into that conversation. We're going to come back here in about 40 minutes. So sit tight and let's listen into our next one.
Very much. So we have a session on leadership, and I'm very delighted to welcome Jim Banister from Raisin. Jim and I have a very long history. We have met 2 days ago, and I can tell you he's a great guy with a lot of experience in leadership and product leadership. So listen carefully to the messages he's going to bring over to you. But before we do that, we want to start, of course, with a quick intro of Jim that he does for himself and for Raisin as a company. Then I will introduce myself and Adform as a company, and then we will deep dive into leadership in the context of product, marketing, sales, and leadership as a pure management challenge and opportunity itself. Over to you, Jim.
Awesome. So I'll give you a quick overview of the Raisin journey. So you have some context of where I'm coming from and where I'm sitting. It truly is a rocket ship. And that rocket ship was built by 3 former McKinseyans who were very focused, top of their game, very focused on the banking and financial industry. And they saw asymmetries and inequities, and they decided to do something about that to change the world, and did. And that distilled into essentially a vision, what still gives us light, what is core in our DNA today, around savings and investments without barriers. And so what does that mean? Savings and investments is wealth building and management products that empower Raisin customers. And then there are 4 constituents for the Without Barriers. The first is, of course, our customers, where we want to frictionlessly, delightfully, and eventually intelligently guide them to the best raisin financial products that match their personal circumstance. And for the partner banks, which are the ones providing those deposit products, savings products, we want them to frictionlessly and reliably be able to integrate with Raisin to adjust their balance sheet. That's the reason they're offering these products. They're any kind of deposit product, whatever territories and whatever currencies they choose. And then our distribution partners, there we have big partners, N26 is one, for example, that want to integrate Raisin products into their offering for their customers to retain those customers and generate incremental revenue. And then finally, we don't exempt our own crew in terms of the mission, which is giving them the opportunity to safely stretch beyond their perceived professional limits and take advantage of the savings and investments without barriers, wealth building. And I can say with authenticity that our founders made sure that that was true for our employees. So it's pretty cool. And where we started was very small, right? And I wasn't there at the time. I've been there 2 years now. And it was a single product from a bank called T-Bank in Bulgaria, which was a 2.9% one-year term deposit. Pretty incredible, right? And that created a sprout immediately that by the end of year one was 200 million in assets under management in 5 banks on this marketplace platform. That's product market fit by any definition. And that created an upward spiral that has kept going for 8 years. Today, we're at more than 13 billion in assets under management in 100 banks. And there is an engine that drives this. And I know I'm mixing metaphors here. I got propellers and rocket ships, but they all create lift. So bear with me on that one. And essentially the engine is that we provide a platform where banks can provide more and competitive offers that attract customers who want to put their money into a pan-European deposits marketplace because they may not be able to find a reasonable place to put their money in their home country. Now they can find it pan-European. We're also now in UK and we're moving into the United States. So the whole engine, whether it's our operations teams and the core platform and our products, is about driving that, which is a 2-sided marketplace, which has a supply side and a demand side. And the supply side, we drive more. We add more Raisin products. Now we have ETFs, investment and pension products. And on the demand side, we have more distribution partners, more territories, and more customer segments. So that's essentially the Raisin virtuous cycle, the engine that has created that lift, that rocket ship lift that is continuing to this day. And there's a bit of complexity in our business, so I'll speak to that a little bit. So how do we navigate this thing? It turns out that we have multiple business types and that have different dynamics, different problems, different solutions. And this is a sort of representation of that, where we have on one side the 2-sided deposits marketplace, savings marketplace, where on the demand side it's B2B, B2C, and B2B2C. And it's also on the supply side, B2B. And we have similar complexity on the investment and pension products. So all our operations teams across all our countries and the actual product platform and technology platform has to support all of that complexity. And so it's quite complex and we have to be pretty cross-functionally adept to do that. So where are we flying this thing? We're flying it to 100 billion in assets under management. Yeah, that's our North Star. And we're about 1/6 of the way there. And we're accelerating. So it's going very well. And this is actually, we don't have a newer picture of this because of COVID times. This is almost 2 years old now. And that's me over there. And you can see more if you go to raisin.com or you go to raisin.co.uk. And if you're in Germany, you can go to weltsparen.de as well. And a quick shout out to Prezi Video. This is my alma mater, my former role before this one. That's what I'm using here to share, to embed myself in my content. And it works on all these different platforms. So that's it.
Great stuff, Jim. Thanks very much. And maybe before I introduce myself and Edform, which will be faster, but I would like you to say a few words about yourselves, because we have now learned everything about Raisin, but give us some insight who you are.
Well, I would say I'm a bit of a Forrest Gump. My career has been I'm not sure if it was fate or it was a leaf on the wind. Maybe it's a bit of both, as he said. And so all my career, I've been in the entertainment business. I was in the aerospace business, and I've been doing what it wasn't called product back then, right? Because I've lived a few decades. But I have worked, I've been an entrepreneur and I've been an entrepreneur, companies like Warner Brothers, Tesco, but also companies like Prezi and Say So and some others. And so I think the way I've distilled it, the thread is, you know, working with merry bands of pirates, taking on naughty challenges, you know, to provide value for customers, people. You know, it could be entertainment or it could be a functional wealth building app like at Raisin. I don't know if that's helpful, but it's a pretty storied. If you go to LinkedIn, you can see some. You'd be like, this guy, what's this guy's deal? But it's been a fun journey.
Yes, impressive journey, Jim. Thanks for that quick introduction. So a few words about myself, as I'm the moderator, and I'll humbly be shorter because this is very much about you and your experiences in Raisin. So my name is Boris Koschinski again. I'm based out of Hamburg in Germany. I'm a regional president for Northern Europe at Adform. I have been here for 3.5 years. And we're actually a company with Danish roots, have been around, and I was just aware for about 20 years right now. Our core product, I hope you have heard of it, is Adform Flow, so enterprise technology built for modern marketing. And our platform is a very configurable, transparent, that's a big word in these days, and secure platform. Basically, it consists as core products of ad server, DSP, and a data management platform. So basically, we bring you into the position to do seamless management of your whole advertising campaign lifecycle. And the context in which you may have heard Adform a lot recently is, as I said, transparency of your advertising, see where your money goes. And then identity, which has become a massive challenge for the industry, as we all know, with the cookie crumbling. So stay tuned. We are very active on LinkedIn and give you the latest ideas on how you make your advertising future-proof. But back to us and back to leadership.
Yeah, so about us.
Yes. And we're starting a little bit with a general question, and that is about the marketing and product setup of Raisin and which benefits that brings. What would you say, Jim?
So I would start with that. We have I would say our marketing team at Raisin tends more towards the brand marketing, the relationship marketing side. We have a really strong brand affinity. Last time we measured our NPS, is, if you believe in NPS, it was around 73. And we have incredible, you know, lifetime value that increases over time. You know, so there's a real strong bond there. And some of that has to do with the core product and what we do for people to help them build their wealth. And some of it has to do with a marketing team that does a good job. And so we have the only sort of realm that product and marketing overlap in for relationship marketing is around who owns the brand, right? I mean, because we have a product essentially. And so this is a classic sort of chicken and the egg thing. Is it marketing that creates the brand? Is it us that create the brand? You know, it's a bit of a dancer, but it works pretty well. And it's much more intimate in the transactional marketing aspect, the CRM, SEO, SEM, you know, sort of growth mission, if you will. We do not have a classic growth team. That's principally because we're in the middle of a replatforming. We will next year because we're building a whole new platform for the future. And that's where we do, I would call it the deeper collaboration. And in fact, when I got to Raisin, I created a mission. Well, I didn't by myself, but I proposed creating a mission which was specifically to service Raisineers. It's called the Raisineer Experience Tooling Mission, right? RXT is what it's called. And so there was a lot of collaboration, deep collaboration, a pairing of CRM and product to go figure out what are we going to build to make sure that we have the best equipped transactional marketing teams in the biz. I don't know, am I answering your question at all a little, or I'm just sort of describing the relationship?
I think I get it. And I think the interesting thing when you look at companies that are breaking rules, that are bringing up new stuff, I mean, how do they do that? What is the secret sauce about that? And do the marketing guys go out and say, hey, we've got something great to sell, or is it more that there is a product team that is thinking about about the future and potential new.
Yeah. So it depends on what we define as product, because for us, we have financial products and they don't necessarily directly correlate to a singular software product, if you will, right? There's, and so I would say that, that the product market fit, the deposits marketplace, as I was describing, it caught fire like really quick, right? So marketing really doesn't, it's more about expanding the awareness of that, right? And then optimizing the journeys and so forth, as opposed to, and of course we do better never best is one of my phrases, release management, so that as we're planning, and of course we do road mapping and capacity plan, quarterly capacity planning, to make sure that marketing knows or has their input as to what they feel like they need as well, so that we can actually collaboratively figure out what to build and how to launch it and market it, essentially. I don't know if I'm answering your question though. Yeah, ish?
Well, yes, you are. And it brings me right to the next question, because about product leadership, how it relates to sales and marketing leadership. And you as a product leader, you're this chief product officer. What do you think about what makes a strong marketing and sales leader? Because these are the guys you got to collaborate with and that you have to make successful, and they have to make you successful.
Yeah. It's a good question. I don't want to be flippant about the answer. You know, ironically, as you're saying that, I'm realizing that Burkhard, who is our CMO, and I have never had a conversation about leadership, right? I mean, ever, right? In fact, though, based on evidence of how he treats his team and how he treats our team, most of his interactions with my team are with my team. Most of my interactions with his team are with his team. And for me, that's a really good thing, right? That's a really strong thing. It's a more osmotic, I guess, less, I mean, we do this, at the C level, we do the long-term planning, you know, setting objectives or curating objectives and so forth, and figuring out what the long-term strategy, amongst other leadership, functional leadership and P&L leadership. We've never had a conversation about leadership style that I remember. I don't know, Burkhard, if you see this, if I forgot, I beg your pardon. So I would say that he and I work more on the OKR and capacity planning and road mapping level. And even then, our teams are working very, very, very tightly. And my sense is, even though we haven't had that conversation, is that he has a similar, you know, empower the teams, give them autonomy with accountability, and, you know, let them go. How does it work at yours? I mean, because, you know, you and I were joking the other day that that we're sort of the mongoose snake. There's natural friction between sales leaders and product leaders, or marketing leaders and sales leaders and marketing leaders, and not so much between the leaders. I mean, there's a natural tension there. How's it set up at Adform?
Yeah, I think it's a very fair question, because the industry we are in is extremely challenging and provides a lot of opportunities. And what does it mean? We have a number of big customers that, of course, have always good ideas and good feedback, truly good feedback on how to improve our product. So you have to find ways to bake this client feedback in and to prioritize it in. At the same time, you have a product vision, right? That you want to realize. And so the idea is, where do you bring the product? When you know that, right? When you're a small customer company, you're very often driven by the input of your few large customer, and bring that in to make them really happy. And then there's the step where you evolve, and we've gone quite past that. So there is this product vision that you have to always pursue and make sure you bring into play. And then there is, of course, external factors, which sometimes come as a surprise, sometimes not. So what I said, for example, about the cookie crumbling, right? So how are we going to do audience marketing in the future, given that Firefox, Safari, and now also Google are crumbling the third-party cookie? So these are things that are happening in our environment, and that we have to bake in. And we're naturally we luckily anticipated this at the very early stages, but of course you have to bake that into your planning. And you always play in this in this
So it's
field.
like balancing the tactical needs of what's in front of you, as well as curating the signal and making sure you know where you want to go, to making the big bets, et cetera, and then balancing that. Is there some process or ceremony or framework that you guys use to do that? How do you do that?
So yes, we have a very clear framework. We have a product steering board that is deciding about the overall direction. We obviously have a roadmap that we're sticking to, and it's rare that we are surprised by trends. Obviously, it is more that these marketing trends come in and then make us build our plan, our product development activities.
What's the composition of that product, that board?
It's the product guys, it's the developers, it's our COO, who is very much in charge of the whole sales and servicing organizations. It's obviously also marketing as more as an executional role. So these are the guys, and then we also have a level where then the regions that we consist of 4 regions have a say and provide steady feedback to make sure that we have both the customer feedback all in and the vision being taken care of as well.
Yeah.
So cool. Interesting process. And one of the things I have to say, this is the fun part of being in a European company. I've been working for a number of US companies as well, and there, of course, you're much more far away from product management. And for these companies, the balance is more, okay, we have our home market in the US, which is huge. How do we make sure we are also serving the Europeans? And for us, it is being we are the core region of AdForm, so that's of course a much more comfortable role to be in.
Yeah.
But we want to talk about leadership.
I beg your pardon.
Go for it.
I just wanted to just quickly summarize. So the framework we use to collaborate right now, we don't have a product board, although it sounds like we're very much set up like you. One of our co-founders, our COO, is responsible for operations and technology and product, right? So there is that kind of thing. So we have a sort of a de facto board, I guess, in the MDs. We have 4 MDs as well. And the way we do it is there's a ceremony framework for every sort of time frame, right? There's a long-term strategy. There's a 1-year rolling roadmap, a 12-month rolling roadmap that gets refreshed. Then we have a 3-month capacity planning, which is about resolving dependencies and conflicts and figuring out how to match supply and demand. There's a demand for what we want to do, and there's only a certain supply of capability. And then, of course, we do sprint reviews and we do monthly check-ins on all those things. So, yeah, just to
sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next chapter of our conversation. So far we have been with product, etc. But I mean, leadership. So you're a very experienced leader, Jim. How would you describe your leadership style? What's your leadership style?
So, it's changed over the years, of course. When I was a youngster, it was more command and control. I know better. And, I thought I was quick and these things, full of myself, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes I end up with confidence. But the way I describe it, Boris, is that now I have very high confidence in my pattern recognizer. Right? Super high confidence in that something's wrong, or so there's an opportunity there, or that kind of thing. But as soon as all the possibilities collapse into a single choice, then I have very little confidence, right? I'm constantly questioning it, thinking about it, making sure that I'm, checking in on it and so forth, or helping others do the same. And so over the years, it's evolved into what now I call contextual leadership. So there's all manner of leadership styles, from servant leadership over here to command and control and surgical, things that you need to do, and everything in between. And the truth is that I found, anyways, that every one of them has a place, a role. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do for a team or a company is command and control, surgery, not therapy. Sometimes you don't want to do that all the time. If you're operating on the patient all the time, you're going to kill the patient. Nobody's going to want to work there, but sometimes it's the most compassionate thing to do. So basically, I work on better understanding when the right mode of leadership is required, and that's the thing that I practice the most. And it's alchemy. It's not perfect. It's not a science, but that's it. I would say that the second one is I treat the team as my product. Right. So I love treating the product as my product, but I can't, right? That's their job, is to treat the product as their product. And so I treat the team as my product. And when I trained in Agile nearly 20 years ago, the people that trained me actually taught me Agile Enterprise. We were talking Agile Enterprise, which is how do you actually also apply it, not just to the product, but also to the team. It was pretty inspired back then. And that's what I do, right? And so our whole crew sort of does that. So we're pretty candid about our ceremonies, but we set OKRs for improving ourselves. We, do the same kind of ceremonies. We do the retrospectives. We take them seriously. We distill action items, et cetera. So treating the team as a product allows you to step up and go to the meta layer, periodically and say, how can we be better? And it lets us off the hook too, because then we can say to each other, well, why don't we try this for 3 months and see if that works better? It's never permanent. It's not like this massive, well, sometimes it's permanent, but it doesn't feel permanent. Then the third thing I think I would say is that I'm a visual leader. I love communications, from metaphors to Miro to Prezi to whatever. It's just one of my things. And many of my crew are way better than me at it these days. I think the last thing I would say, there's loads of things, right, that I could riff on, but the last thing I would say is, as I got older, I started to realize I was embodying my last name, the last name Banister, the English word. It's the thing you hold on to on a stairway as you, climb the stairs, of your career. And so that steadying, guiding influence combined with that contextual leadership style is sort of what I try to practice in my mind. Yeah.
I have a spontaneous question for you regarding the visualization, because I could obviously see that from the start when you were introducing Raisin. Was there anything in your career where it made click and you said, okay, I just have to do that more, or how did you get there?
Yeah, I always had a natural curiosity. I as a youngster, my physics degree was in optics, right? So it was all about light interacting. I was always attracted to it. And then I ended up building, in my first job for a company called TRW, it was an aerospace company. Computer graphics was just starting at the time. This is the 1980s. And so I'm like, oh, I want to do that. And so I ended up being able to start what's still there today at this company called the Engineering Visualization Center. And we did animation of really esoteric and hard to understand concepts. And so it started very early in my career, and it was just a thing. I'm actually working with one of our lead Scrum Masters right now. He showed an interest in, I'd like to learn how to make these mini videos and do these things, and I love that. So that's one of the things that anybody who wants time to learn how to do visualization, there's no better form of communication. And impedance matching is what I call it, right? So people can consume more effectively. Yeah. Did I answer your question, Ish?
You did, and I can see it from my company. If you have something to present to the board, you visualize things and you get the message across, and they eat it very, very quickly. So I think it's a very, very efficient tool, both in presenting results, but also in
so what do you
managing.
What do you use? You're on the Microsoft stack, right? So you use...
Come on, yeah. I'm not good at it, honestly. But what I force myself is to use more graphs and images, etc. But I'm a complete amateur compared to you. But if you just put numbers on the board, normally the message isn't seen. You have to describe the message, and obviously it's a different ones when you allow people to use their eyes immediately. Yeah. But coming back to the topic of leadership, you were also mentioning a couple of behaviors where you were saying, okay, these are key behaviors that I'm applying and that you're also expecting from your leaders, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'd be curious to see what yours are too, frankly, especially given you have a different context. And actually, that's the first one is I tend to go to C words for some reason. I don't know if there's something to do with the English language, but the first one, and probably the most important one is for me is curiosity. Be curious is literally a practice. And when you're curious, what I found over the years, even if you're feigning it, right? Even if you're not curious at first, eventually what happens is your ego tends to drop, right? And if everybody's being curious, then it becomes a much more convivial kind of engagement. And so really be curious is a thing. So for example, a stakeholder comes and says, make it blue. And you say, well, tell me why you feel it needs to be blue. I mean, just really be curious. Why does it need to be blue? And then keep peeling away at that. And that curiosity is critical for me and a product person. The second one is context. Again, another C word. And context is, it relates to curiosity, of course, is because everybody's got their stuff, right? And especially in cross-functional teams, if you as a product person or an engineering lead or whatever aren't curious, aren't seeking the context of the other, how is this, for example, sales, right? Boris, we talked about this a little bit, is that sales is slogging it out on the front line. And I've done sales, and so I know what it's like to be beaten down because the product failed in a demo or it doesn't have what they need. It's just like, it's a slog, it's brutal. And it's embarrassing sometimes. And product people and engineers don't have to deal with that really, right? And so that kind of curiosity and context, understanding the context, what's going on in that space and what do they need, leads to the third one, which is compassion. And compassion for me is not empathy. Empathy is more passive. Compassion is more active, right? It's about actionable empathy, right? So it's like, I feel you, man, and I'm going to do something to help you. I'm going to see what I can do to help you, right? And then the next one I think would be give credit, don't take credit. That literally is a practice. It drives me crazy. It's one of my, next to customer service treating me badly in any company. That's the one, where people taking credit, even if they deserve credit. It's like, that's for others to give, in my opinion. It's not for me to take credit. That's just a slippery slope that goes down. And then the next one is amplification, amplify everything. And I use the word amplify, not communicate, because for me, amplify implies filtering signal from noise.
Explain
right?
that.
So, yeah. So when we work in cross-functional teams, when we're in the heat of battle, et cetera, there's a lot of emotion that comes with the signal, right? I mean, there could be really true signal about what we need to build, what the issue is, how to solve the problem, et cetera. But when, it could be ego, it could be things going on at home, whatever it happens to be, right? So for my product people, what I ask them to do is, of course, share early, share often, amplify as much as possible, and do your best to find the root signal, right? Because we're constantly looking at the 360 degrees or 180 degrees of signal coming in from all the functional units and from the product itself and from customer research, et cetera, et cetera. And then when you're talking to humans, invariably there's emotion, right? And so, be curious, try and filter that, and then amplify that to the rest of the folks. And when you do that, it's not noise anymore, because people say that actually on Slack, right? They say, or on any one of these things, they say, sorry for the noise when I do this thing. So focus on filtering signal from noise. And then the last thing I would offer is, and this is a big thing for me, is language. I don't know, I couldn't attest to the science of neuro-linguistic programming. I don't know, but I do know that our language affects our cognition, right? So for example, even simple things is that if somebody says blah, 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 and they say, but, and they move on, or I say something or somebody says something and then they say, but blah, 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 that essentially negates everything. Doesn't matter whether you're cognizant of the fact that they just negated everything that came before. And so gently asking, do you mean and, or do you mean but, right? These kinds of things are really critical, huh?
Totally. Don't think of a yellow bus. What do you do, right?
Yeah, precisely. You can't help it. And so, yeah, language is a big deal. And I'd be curious to know how you all do it, because if you don't share language, how do you share context, right? If you don't have a way, there's these cultural differences even inside a company between sales and marketing and product and engineering and so forth. And if you don't have something, and that's where OKRs come from and these kinds of things to try and do that. But how do you all do it at your company at Adform?
Yeah, I mean, a number of things that I would copy. And when you started to talk about context, curiosity, compassion, I thought this is why I like working in this industry, because this industry attracts so many people that bring them. And I would even say it's a requirement for people to be successful in this industry, because it's moving so fast and there are so many changes. There's so much innovation. There's dense competition. So you always have to walk around with open eyes and ears and understand what the next big thing is, what competition is doing, what trends we should be looking at. I mean, if you look at our industry, everything in digital advertising started with a banner somewhere on a desktop, and then it.
I was there.
Yeah, see, me too. And you see, right? And then it became more formats on desktop, and suddenly you had the mobile devices, and we all have been joking around for 10 years now. It's the time of mobile, but then it came, and then we had video on mobile, and now we have much more audio stuff. You have digital out of home, and of course that is also driving new trends for advertisers. But there's a lot of technological challenge in there. And always new industry, you have to understand. The out of home people speak completely different languages compared to the native digital people. If I
That's
call
right.
them.
Yeah.
So learn, and there we're back to language, right? So have a good translator. Approach yourself, but also approach the expectations. So I know I don't quite answer to your question, but I think this is really fascinating about our industry, and of course it carries into our organization, because we have to be so precise and agile in order to be able to understand.
That's true. Yeah. So you're saying that you feel like some of the things that I'm identifying are more that people are self-selecting. Those kinds of people tend to self-select into this kind of industry because it moves so fast. It's fresh. You need to be curious. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's fair point.
Yeah. And in the interest of time, so we're 6 minutes over, but I haven't seen that we have not received any questions so far. So
the hall monitor hasn't come in yet, but that's.
So if brand innovators don't stop, you guys just stop us, and if you don't stop us, we'll just continue talking, right?
Yeah, let's go.
Cool. So one of the things that we also talked about is the foundational elements of product leadership. What did come into your mind? What comes into your mind when you hear this term? You talked about the benefits of shared language.
Yeah, well, I would say it's probably the list that I gave, right? I mean, that's where I'd start anyways, right? To do that. So, I mean,
let's move on. Why don't we move on? Because you were raising an interesting topic.
But can I share what just came up for me? So for example,
of course, you go for it.
Because you and I, when we were talking to each other, it's not on our agenda in terms of the questions. We were talking to each other. We're old enough to have been to multiple places, right, and been in leadership positions, a lot of times, and this relates to the curiosity and context, right, and so forth. When you go to a new company, if you bring in, what you think worked last time or worked the last 3 times, or as whole cloth essentially, and presume that it'll just fit right in, I found with great veracity that doesn't work, right? So for example, what I showed that today at the beginning was a derivation of when I first started. I spent, it was most of my own time, but I spent so much time interviewing all the different people to learn what is it we do, what's the mission, et cetera. And then I turned it into a video, and one of the founders narrated that video, and it had some of the elements of what you saw. And that, of course, helped me learn it well enough so that I could teach it. And that goes back to the same kind of curiosity thing. Let's seek to understand, and then filter the signal out and amplify what's the root signal, right? And I feel like that's a really powerful and necessary trait, I guess I would say, characteristic. And it's sort of what I expect of my the folks that work for me, because I treat every product owner as a mission leader. They are a mission leader, right? They necessarily are, even and a cross-functional mission leader. And what I try to do, and I encourage other product leaders to do this, is find times when you can treat your team as a hive. You know, I call it the hive CPO. And sometimes I'll bring in problems, or I'll ask them, I need you to solve this problem. You're going to be a CPO someday. Let's figure it out. What do you want to try? You know, and give them an opportunity to make a bigger decision to do that kind of, thing. Uh-oh, I see the hall monitor here. Lisa.
Yes. Lisa's going to stop us now.
I haven't been called a hall monitor before, but I loved it. It made me laugh when you said that a few minutes ago. Yes, I am here. I do feel a bit like a hall monitor when I appear, particularly in the middle of such an engaging and interesting conversation. So thank you, Jim and Boris. I had a question about Agile, which came up kind of mid your conversation. I'd love to get both of your thoughts on it. I am at the very start of my Agile journey, and I know we'll have lots of leaders on the call who are either using Agile, thinking about it, have heard lots about it, but aren't quite sure whether for them. And I just wondered what your one piece of advice might be to anyone thinking about moving to a more Agile model.
You want to go first, Boris?
You go first. You'll do.
Oh, man. Time to think.
Because I needed time to think as well.
I'm kidding. So I don't know if this is right or wrong or useful. The first thing that came up for me when you asked the question is two things, and they're two sides of the same coin. One is do whatever works, right? And the second one is don't be religious about practices. Full stop. Treat the adoption of Agile the same way that Agile teaches to treat your product, right? Learn fast and change, do more of what works, do less of what doesn't work for your personality. So you've heard these stories about Spotify, and everybody goes, yeah, we do the Spotify model and everything. And even the Spotify folks who we've spoken to, they were kind enough to come in and work with us a bit. Some of those folks, they said, we didn't intend that for other people. That was for us. You need to find your personality. So I would say, seek your personality of Agile. And even if it doesn't fit into the Agile principles, if you feel like, oh, why don't we try this instead? Try it. It may work for you. But try it for long enough so you can see whether it has efficacy or not, and just give it a go in that way. And then do a retrospective, look back, that didn't work, try something else, kind of thing. That's what I would say. Is that answering your question, at least from my perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's been so interesting to hear you talk about it. And Boris, I don't know if you're also working in Agile.
I would basically copy, and I have not much to add to what you say, Jim. I think being humble, looking at the superstars in the company that you're working with, and then taking the time to learn and review how you've done, I think is nothing more to add to that.
Fantastic. That's such a great note for us to end on. And thank you so much for closing our day on C-suite marketing and leadership. We have had a lineup of speakers. I hope everyone would agree. We started with David, if something is broken, be different. And then we moved on to Marion, who had a traffic light system for reframing a crisis.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. We are slowly moving through our afternoon, but it feels like it's zipping over on my end. So what I want to do next is I want to get our next session up and running because we've got a live session that is popping off right this moment. We've got Wendy White, who's the CMO with Tiger Connect, here with us. And to moderate our session, we have Jess Holloway, the Director of Sales Marketing with Influential, joining us on our virtual stage here. We'll give them a moment before we bring them on board. And I see Wendy is making her way to our virtual platform, as well as Jessica. So Wendy, Jessica, how you doing today?
Great. Hey. Thanks for having me.
I got to ask.
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be back here. I love brand innovators.
Jessica, I got to ask, is that your home looks incredible right now? That's not a virtual background, correct?
Total virtual background, but inspo, if you will.
It looks, I gotta say, I actually, it caught me off guard there, and I'm like, oh, she's got a really nice living room. I love that. But Wendy,
I've got a puppy behind me. That's why I'm like Virtual background's probably
No,
good today.
we should bring the puppy in at some point. I think that would be fun. Maybe to end it, we can say hello to the puppy. Totally optional, totally up to you. But Wendy's got I don't know if that's a virtual background or not, but I do love the.
It's not virtual, and there's two puppies, and so hopefully they will be charming and quiet during this conversation. But you never know.
Or isn't this conversation around puppies and marketing? Isn't that what we're here to do? No.
I'm always down for that.
That would draw the best crowd, I think.
Well, ladies, I would love to turn it over to you both. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Wendy and Jessica, take it away.
Cool. Well, really glad to be here. As I said, and Wendy, I'm very pumped to get to chat with you about, what's been going on with you in your role at Tiger Connect. So first of all, I think it would be great for the audience to hear a little bit about you and about your background. So you're currently the CMO at Tiger Connect, which is fully rooted in the healthcare space, which we know has been a space that's been talked about a ton over this past couple of years for a lot of reasons. But, I would love to get an understanding of like your background and your career journey and how you got to this role and how previous experiences kind of got you here.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that, Jess. Well, I joined Tiger Connect right after the beginning of the year for two reasons. One is it's a very fast growing SaaS company. And I'm a builder. I love to build things, grow things, and work in kind of an agile, fast paced software environment. But the second thing is right before I joined, my father had COVID and was in the hospital for a month. And as a family member of a patient, I really discovered that there were so many opportunities to transform the way that care teams work with patients and work with families. And so I'm super excited to be part of transforming that. But what got me here, I'm date myself a little bit, about a 30-year B2B marketing veteran. I've worked at some of the world's largest tech companies like Intel, Microsoft, and Motorola, but I've also been CMO of software companies from really small emerging Series A, like 2 million, all the way up to $1 billion software companies. So I'm applying all that now here at Tiger Connect to help this company as it skyrockets towards an IPO.
Awesome. And so, I know we want to talk a bit about the role of digital marketing, and you being the CMO of a company like Tiger Connect. I know how critical it is to have a really strong overarching marketing strategy, but getting an understanding of how digital marketing plays into that strategy would be really interesting to hear about, specifically because, you guys are B2B technology, you're rooted in healthcare, you're also a startup. So I feel like there's just so much for you guys to tell the world. So tell me a little bit about how you guys are weaving digital marketing into your strategy and how communicating your message has been going for you guys.
Yeah. Digital marketing, I don't know how you separate digital from marketing anymore. And so it feels like it's almost like, extraneous to put the word digital in front of it, right? Our digital channels are so critical. People might not assume that with B2B, but, really a B2B buyer in this day and age is maybe doing 50, 60, 70% of their research about the solutions they want to consider before they're ever even engaging the software company. So having a really complete digital buyer's journey for all of your organization, your ideal customer profile types, as well as the personas or the audiences within those ideal customer profiles is incredibly critical. So end-to-end buyer's journey, take them on the journey all the way from like the first consideration of, do I even need to consider making a change, all the way to, do I need to consider, this company, or once I do I have the confidence that this company is going to be the right partner for me? I'll be able to implement it and I'll get the right ROI. So we think of that digital journey as something that we need to have that buyer's journey for. We need to be discovered and we need to take people on that journey with us. And of course, at the middle of that is great content, great SEO, couldn't get there without having a really smart search engine marketing, but then surrounding it with, maybe some of the more recent technologies around account-based marketing that allows us to really understand what our prospective clients are doing and who's in market for a solution like ours.
Awesome. And one other thought I had here in regards to digital marketing in general is, I think also now you can't totally separate social from digital marketing strategy as well. And, I think in the beginning when social media started to developing, a lot of brands were kind of like, is this a place where we need to be? Is this a place? Now it's 2021, and we know that social media is a place where we all need to be in some way, shape, or form. Whether you're a B2B company, a consumer-facing company, it's just equally as important. So I'd love to get an understanding of how social media, plays a role for you guys and what that role is. What is social media for Tiger Connect, and how do you guys approach it?
I think for B2B companies, social media is actually as important. And maybe we're not chasing those Instagram influencers as much as the consumer companies are, but we are trying to share our authentic voice in social media. And so for us, it's even more important that we bring our employees into that. In B2B, you want to be perceived as an expert. Sorry, there's a guy doing work right outside my window. Let me chase him away.
Oh, man. Real home environment, everyone.
Okay, I chased him away. How hilarious is that? I mean, that's feels like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a COVID thing, right? You're all working from home and real life intrudes.
I usually get got by the leaf blower guy. The leaf blower guy always gets me.
So I was saying that social media for us is about sharing our authentic voice and really our brand story. So one of our biggest things we focus on is empowering our employees to tell our story for us. People want to hear from people. They believe people more than they sometimes even believe, trusted brands. And so while we think we are a trusted brand, we really focus a lot of our social media on giving great content to our expert employees who are expert in healthcare, expert in software, to allow them to expand our voice and our reach out through our social channels. And of course, we still focus on our own social channels, and I joke about Instagram, but we're there, especially for, our employer brand and for recruiting, that's important. And of course we have a podcast because it's a great way to tell customer stories for us. So we invite our customers on to tell about their experiences, what they're moving through and how we're helping them. And see, now you finally heard the puppies too.
And there's the pup.
There's the puppies. So yeah, digital, social, super, super critical to our overall brand mix.
So, and speaking about, the podcast angle, I love that you guys are doing some podcasting. And so what have you, you're telling different customer stories. What have you guys been doing when you're telling those stories that is helping to really drive engagement? What have you guys been finding successful in the podcast space? Because, I feel like a lot of companies have dabbled a little bit here. They might be doing some end tags with different podcasts, but I know that there are some companies who are, contemplating starting their own and doing a little thought leadership in that space. So love to hear a little bit about that too.
Well, there's podcasts for everything, right? And so when you hear, a healthcare software company has a podcast, and I think, well, why, right? For especially in B2B. But what I would say is podcasts are a great medium for really comfortable conversations with your clients. Social proof, which is the evidence that the customer can provide that your solution actually works, is critically important in the enterprise space. And yet, customers in in B2B software and healthcare might be a little hesitant to, have a film crew come out to their hospital and film a testimonial video, but they're not as hesitant to hop right on that podcast and have a conversation. So we're giving our customers a voice We're letting them tell really compelling narratives. And then we're using that information, to share with other prospects, but also, on our website, et cetera. Actually, we're going through a website redesign. And one of the things we're doing is bringing podcasts right up to the front because they are so compelling. And in the end, we're marketing to humans. Humans want to hear storytelling from other humans, and it's a really valuable medium for us.
Okay. So speaking of humans, hearing from other humans, I would love to hear, obviously the whole influencer thing is like a thing now. It's how I have my job. Hello. And I love hearing people's opinions, especially C-suite opinions on leveraging influencers, working with influencers, the role of influencers, especially when it comes to your industry. You guys are unique in that you are in the healthcare space. You guys are a B2B technology. You are speaking to a very specific type of customer.
Right.
So for you guys, I would love to get an understanding of, the role of an influencer. And are those influencers solely your customers, or are there influencers that you guys see that would make sense for your type of business to represent you guys in a natural way?
Yeah, well, again, it's a little different than a consumer brand where somebody can make themselves an influencer through, beautiful photography or pulling products into experiences. For us, you have to be an expert. You kind of have to be an expert, right? So our influencers maybe look a little different. They're industry analysts, they're physicians who are, really caring about the future of healthcare, and have maybe created a great medium for themselves on Clubhouse, or they're consultants or experts in the industry who have created a voice for themselves. So we do think about influencers. We just think about it in a little bit of a different way, but they're critical. Again, back to you have to really understand your buyer's journey and what takes your buyer from consideration to confidence. How do you create confidence in them, and again, social proof of customers, but also industry influencers, storytelling, talking about and creating an obvious need for your solution is a really critical part of even B2B marketing.
Oh yeah, I fully agree. It's interesting. I was audience. I was telling Wendy that my family is very deeply rooted in the healthcare industry. And, I think that's completely correct. My sister works for a healthcare network. She works for a hospital network. And she was talking to me about how her doctors, they're speaking to a lot of their doctors about going out there and, creating their own voice and putting out really quality content that will be helpful, not only to the consumers that come to the hospital, but also, from a B2B perspective, entrusting the hospital as a place. So I think that's completely on point. And I think it's interesting how the industry has evolved, leveraging different types of influencers that aren't, the standard person traveling to Aruba taking beautiful pictures. So really cool.
I will take the trip to Aruba if I can be considered an influencer. Let's go.
Me too. Me too. So, I think it comes out saying that 2020 put a really different eye on the healthcare industry in general. And quite frankly, I think a much more concerned eye on that industry than people have ever really put before. So I would love to hear your take on how you feel the pandemic affected the healthcare industry, especially from a B2B perspective. And, what do you feel like are going to be the lasting effects on the healthcare, on healthcare marketing because of what happened last year and is continuing to go on?
I think there's no doubt that, and we can all observe it, that healthcare may be a little behind other industries when it comes to digital transformation. And you have a a moment in time, like what happened with COVID, it's a catalyst for change. There's just no doubt. And actually, you can look at things like search volume pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, related to healthcare, software, technology, terminology, digital transformation in healthcare, and it spiked, 30, 40, 50%. And that's because, during that time, hospitals had to confront we need to do something different to get the best quality of care for our patients. And luckily, we're right in the center of that. So I think what we're going to see is, and then the other thing as a patient, all of us experienced telehealth during this period and probably liked it a lot, right? And so now what happens when you have, digital transformation accelerating in hospitals and doctors' offices, right? And patient expectations changing. It's just a tipping point moment for technology adoption. And so for me as a marketer, we see that, we're taking advantage of that. We're marketing into that opportunity. And then, for my company, you called this a startup, but I really consider us a scale up. We're going towards 100 million. We're at that point where we are really growing up as a company beyond being a startup. And our marketing and our digital marketing is doing the same because we have such a great market opportunity.
That's great. So what do you guys see, as you guys are starting to grow and evolve, I'd love you to speak to some of the challenges that you guys might be seeing and how you guys are overcoming that, especially when it comes to a marketing, from a marketing perspective. What are the challenges that you guys are up against?
Well, I've spent 30 years marketing to CIOs, chief information officers, people who make technology decisions, executives inside Fortune 100 or 1,000 companies. And so as a marketer, you get a little confidence of, I can market to anybody because I can understand the technology, or I can understand the customer value proposition, and I can build an engine around it. But then you come into healthcare and you realize, well, you're talking to, your story, the people that are consuming your story are doctors. They're chief nursing information officers, people that are helping, relieve the stress on nurses by bringing them technologies that make their jobs easier. You really have to understand that, that audience. So for me, probably the biggest challenge is how to marry deep technical expertise that we get from our clinical teams. We have doctors on staff with great marketing expertise. How do you bring those two together to create amazing content that fuels demand, that engages customers and meets them where they're at, and speaks their language? It's probably the challenge for all marketers. It just feels extra hard in healthcare. And so that's where I'm really focused my time right now, is how do we marry those two things into an amazing marketing engine?
Awesome. That's fantastic. I think I love hearing about the different, challenges that go on, especially when it comes to, marketing with the healthcare industry. Because like I said, it's something that's very close to my family, but I also hear the other side of it too. My mom works in a role where she is consistently having to, see sensitive information, like, HIPAA privileged information. So, I think what you guys are doing is really important because, it's solving a lot of the communication issues that just can go along, in healthcare.
Well, as a marketer, I will say collaboration software, Slack has been a major part of my workflow, right? Why? Because I can expose my Google data in it. I can see my Marketo data. I can, understand how my website is performing because there's natural integration. The same thing is true in healthcare. People want to communicate and collaborate with people, and they want to do it simply, easy, great user experience. But the other thing about that is people need data to make decisions. And so bringing data into a collaboration platform, bringing conversations, making instantaneous decisions that need to be made, maybe life changing, life-saving decisions, all that in one spot, but also doing that in like a very secure way. That's like a really unique challenge. So we have to be able to communicate the aspects of that, the security, the reliability, the uptime, the compliance, all those things. As a marketer, it's important to understand why that's so mission critical to the clients that we serve.
Absolutely. So, I would love to, 2021's been kind of like a weird evolving year, I would say, for everyone. And while, I think, where we started off and where we're going has continued to be a really cool evolution to see. I think people have been overall way more hopeful in 2021 and way more excited about what things are to come. So I would love to get an understanding just in general of, what excites you about 2021? What do you think is to come, and what do you see on the horizon, especially within your industry,
Yeah.
within this year that you think is going to be just really exciting?
Isn't it funny that the simple things are exciting us again? Like going to the office and doing a whiteboarding session with live people in a room and bringing your creativity to bear, against an opportunity or challenge. We're actually bringing our whole company together the week after next for a session to reconnect, to bond, and grow our culture again, to figure out how we're going to be innovative and agile together. And I'm honestly incredibly excited. And then I think about getting in front of customers and creating that human to human conversation live again. So exciting. As much as I think I've gotten incredibly, so much out of Zoom interactions, webinars. I have a weekly CMO coffee chat that I go to every Friday morning. It's like I would not miss it for anything. And I've become really bonded with the people in that. I'm really looking forward to being live again. It's a simple thing. The simple act of brainstorming, the simple act of a cup of coffee with, a client or a business colleague. It's silly, but it's just really real.
Yeah, no, I can definitely agree with that. I think you're right. It's down to going back to the simpler things being just so much more enjoyable. I mean, even down to everyday life. I know, my my friends were all excited for us to be able to go to the movies. That was something that we were like, oh gosh, so expensive, so annoying back in the day, before pre-COVID times.
Oh,
And now we're like, oh my God.
Husband. I wanted to go to a movie and he's like, well, what movies are out? I'm like, I don't know. I just want to go sit in a movie theater.
Right? It's that human interaction. And, that brings up a good question in regards to how you guys have been evolving as an organization throughout the time of the pandemic and through now. So talk to me a little bit about, you guys are going to be doing some things together, but as an organization, are you guys going to be remote? Are you guys going to be hybrid? What's your approach? And what do you think the benefits are to the approach that you guys are going to be having?
Yeah. I don't know if you've been reading up about the concept of the Great Resignation, right? But there is this concept in the industry right now that people are leaving jobs because their values, I think COVID brought their values into focus, and their values may be less time commuting, more time, more flexible schedules, et cetera. I feel super lucky to, first of all, we have an incredible HR leader at our company who really watched this happening and forced the discussion into, hey, we can no longer have an required in office, required one location model. We need to, one, get the best talent wherever they are. And then two, engage and retain our employees by offering them more flexible workforce solutions. So we are not going back to a requirement to be in the office. We are going to a hybrid work model. The executive team that I work with, we've started making plans of let's get together every fourth week in the office for a few days. Let's and make sure that we try to organize our time to be together, but also focus on real life. I don't live anywhere near our office, and I'm okay with that. And I think my boss is too. So, and I certainly feel the same way about my team. The ability to find the best talent wherever they are is a real positive aspect of that.
So, speaking of talent and cultivating the right talent, and I think that is so valid. I absolutely love that, because it now feels weird to me when companies are looking for people who are in roles that can be virtually anywhere, but they're like, oh, it has to be in this city, in this place. It feels slightly limiting almost, because it's like there's all this potential that's out there that you're missing out on. But I think something that's come up a lot, even over the past few years, is not only evolving the types of people that we're bringing in, but I think a lot of conversation has happened around diversity, inclusion, and diversifying the workforce, but also diversifying and having different representation within the way that we market. So I'd love to hear how you guys as a company are approaching that right now.
Yeah, well, I was super lucky, over the last year to work at Expedia, and I used to run the B2B side of Expedia, the corporate travel side, but benefited from having an amazing diversity and inclusion team that I learned so much from, and was able to think a lot about diverse marketing, everything from something as simple as, do you put transcriptions on live events? Do you, what's your registration information ask for a live event in terms of pronouns or, gender preferences? And then also just what is the language and the photography? Like you can look at every aspect of your marketing and say, what's a thoughtful, right way to approach this? And so I think as a CMO, that's one of the things that's important to me, is that it's not just about, throwing a pride flag up on your brand in June. It's actually having a holistic approach all year long to be thinking about more diverse hiring, more diverse, marketing and every aspect, including accessibility of your website, including accessibility of your emails, including, gender pronouns and how you ask for registration information or title information. Like you got to think about the opportunity and end to end through your marketing and communications.
I love that. And, I think that is completely on point. And I think brands are starting to get an understanding of that, because, the brands that are the ones who are just slapping it on during Pride Month and then not really representing before or after, or even just their mission not lining up with that community in general. I think they're getting caught a little bit now, and so I think that's a great way
to called out. Yeah, and called
they're
out.
getting called out.
I will say that I've seen some very smart executives in my network call out companies on LinkedIn over the last 6 weeks, and I think, or even describe what the high bar is and challenge others to meet it, which is good, and it's a great place and a great time to have this conversation.
Absolutely. One thing that I would love your opinion on, and I like to kind of ask people in your role about, is how you guys are internally, helping those people who are within your company to learn, grow, get to the next step, how you're facilitating internal growth and just growth in your employees in general. Because I know I can tell you, I have worked in the advertising industry for like 15 years, aging myself, whoops. And
you're a baby, come on.
I honestly, I can tell you that in the beginning of my career, what wound up being a really crucial moment for me was when I worked at an agency that had a mentorship program. And I hadn't worked at an agency that had one before. I was super excited to be part of it. And having my mentor, I think, changed my entire way of being and my entire way of thinking within the advertising industry, especially when it came to career development. So I'd love to hear what you guys do over at Tiger Connect to really foster that type of growth, because I know that's something really important to people.
Well, so I mentioned earlier, I have an amazing head of people, and so I won't steal her thunder, because she's about to announce some really even more interesting things at our company get together in 2 weeks. But what I will say is, the one good thing about being on a diverse leadership team, and I do work on a diverse leadership team, is is that group cares and thinks about employee growth. We just went through an entire exercise of looking at our employee base and figuring out who we need to invest in, where we need to bring mentorship, to bring people up through the ranks, and made a plan for it. And then the other thing I would say is, for me personally, and I'm a big believer in mentoring employees and giving them tools and resources. So internally, we have things from like a channel where we share best practices and do coaching. I mentor several folks inside and outside of the company, there's like an obligation at some certain level where you have to say, like, your job is to bring people up behind you. Maybe it's because I have adult children now who are entering the workforce or who have entered the workforce, and I see how critical it is for them to grow their career. I'm particularly passionate about this. So I can't spill the beans yet about our company's program. All I can say is I'm so glad that I work with such a great chief people officer that this is like top of mind for her.
Oh man, well, I can't wait to hear about it. I always love to hear how companies are doing these different things, because I just know how much of an impact it made for me. And so seeing that more and more companies are starting to really understand that investing in the human beings that are running the ship is really a positive change. And I think it's something that people should really look forward to. One other question I had for you, that pertains to the healthcare industry in general, the past, let's call it like 10 years, has been like this crazy convergence and evolution of the healthcare industry from a government policy standpoint. And I feel like it is continuing to evolve. I would love to hear what you guys, as your company, are hopeful is going to happen, or hopeful might be some changes that come in the form of, the healthcare system in general from a government perspective, that you think that will be really helpful to the consumer and also helpful to, the providers that you guys are working with.
Wow, Jess, it's an like intriguing and deep question, and I'm not sure I have the best answer. I
don't think there's any right answer, by the way. I think everybody's still trying to figure it out.
Well, if you look at electronic medical records, for example, and the kind of transformation that's happened around that was sparked off of a government mandate and a government program to really move healthcare providers onto those records. And if you think about like waves of innovation that happen because of that, right? You get a core system like that, and then in all the innovation that happens at the fringes and the ecosystem of that. I think that's where we are right now with communication and collaboration in healthcare. Like, we're just at that point, and I don't even think it needs to be a government mandate. I don't see anything on the horizon that says it will. I think the industry is moving itself fast enough. Obviously government programs that are designed around healthcare for all have, implications, and they just create more and more opportunity for innovative players like my own company to get in and, create a space and innovate. So I don't know, there's a lot of VC money chasing healthcare right now, which is great. And there's a lot of, great companies, like ours that are, I think, bringing a transformational impact. And I think the two of those things together is gonna play out. So like to earlier, it's a tipping point. Like, I think the next 10 years is going to be incredibly transformational.
Yeah. And I think you're totally right. I mean, like I said, I've had a family that has been very deeply rooted in the healthcare industry, and my mom specifically is in sales. And so, for her, the ability to be able to get information in a way that is easy, comprehensive, and having that at her fingertips instead of having, I remember back in the day when she used to have insane levels of folders and paperwork in her trunk. There, those days are now numbered, which is nice for her because she's easily able to access a lot of the data that she needs to go in and speak to a lot of these doctors right within an iPad. So I think that's definitely, I think you're right there. I'm hopeful that the technology side of the healthcare industry will continue to evolve, because I think you're right. I think it's slowly jumped on, but I think because of the pandemic, we are having a very serious insurgence of funding going towards technology when it comes to the healthcare industry in general. So I think it's fantastic. I think I have time for one last question, and that would just be specific to Tiger Connect in general. As you guys are growing, I would love to hear where you think, where you're hopeful Tiger Connect will be in the next 5 years as a company, and where you and the rest of your C-suite are hopeful to be in the next few years.
I in my head parallel a little bit the journey that Slack just took when they started being a real transformational force in enterprise, business communications. I kind of look at Tiger Connect and I think we have the opportunity to be as transformational for healthcare as Slack has been for the way software teams work together, or marketing teams, or customer service teams work together. And so for me, I just see the opportunity to continue partnering with great ecosystem partners, building out more and more services on top of our platform, all with the goal of obviously reducing stress on our healthcare workers, improving the quality of patient care, reducing errors, helping save lives. I know it sounds silly for a software company to say, oh, we're going to help save lives, but fundamentally, the more that we can empower healthcare workers, to provide great quality of care, the better. And so, for us, it's about bringing more and more and more solutions into our platform that really empower those healthcare workers.
You know what? And I don't think it's silly at all, because I think what you guys are providing for them is time. And when you're giving them the ability to have, find things very quickly, communicate with each other very seamlessly, you're giving them that time back to be able to put into the people, which I think is really crucial.
You nailed it. And it's also speed of decision making, et cetera. So you've nailed all of it, Jess.
Yeah. I mean, it comes from just seeing the other side of it, that I completely understand why you guys are definitely a company that's going to make a very great impact, and companies like yours for people like my mom and the doctors that she works with. They're always crunched for time, and there's so much. She always says, people look at doctors and healthcare workers as the end all be all, and that they're supposed to know everything. But the reality is they can only know what they know, and they can only know what they have the time to be able to absorb, and what information people will be able to bring to them. And so, the ability for them to be able to have some time to be able to continue to learn and know more, I think is definitely something that's crucial. So I think it's great what you guys are doing.
I think we as a society have really come to believe over the last year that these healthcare workers are heroes. And we have to all be aware of the mental, health issues, the physical, demands on these folks, and whatever we can do to help that. So I agree with everything you said.
Yeah. And, I think the development and all the different mental health apps and products that have been popping up are only highlighting what we kind of knew before, but weren't doing as much about. So I think that is the absolute truth about that. You know what? I think we're just about at time. Let me ping Ryan. Oh, Ryan, you there?
Ping me. I'm hanging out with you. Still here. Yeah, no, we're just at our time right now, which means we should probably see the dogs at this point.
Oh, mine is
the guy with the saw. Where'd he go? Where's the guy with the saw? That was crazy.
I know, right? Where's he at? Now, I would show you mine, but she's She's passed
Yeah.
out in her little
they're
beanbag chair.
crouched somewhere. So sorry, Ryan. Maybe next time I'll plan better.
Yeah, just invite us back to the Brand Innovators puppy discussion.
That's actually the next one we're going to be putting together. So it's bring your puppies to the live cast day, and it's going to be a full 3 hours of just puppies on camera with us the entire time. No, but seriously, Wendy and Jessica, thank you for the amazing conversation. It's crazy how fast the 40 minutes does go by, but it does move pretty darn quickly, right?
It did. And Jess, you're a master at keeping it moving. So I really enjoyed the time today. So thank you both for doing that.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Until the next one, we will see you both later.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Wendy.
Bye,
it was a pleasure.
And for our audience at home, we've got our what is our final session of the day popping up right now. We've got Shiv, who's the SVP and GM of Brand with Expedia, who's going to be joining us for our next 40-minute discussion. We've got an awesome moderator. That's Alex Norman, the Chief Growth Officer with Wavemaker North America, who we're going to be bringing with us to our virtual stage here in just a moment. So please just sit tight. We're going to go ahead and get our crew together for this. But in the meantime, audience, do not forget, we are live here and we're going to be going live with some questions at the end of this session. So you got the chat window down at the bottom of the screen. You can use that. You can also use the Q&A box to ask your questions there. And we will get started here in just a few moments. Hey, Alex.
Hello, how are you?
Very well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I got the background going. I'm all set.
You're ready to rock and roll.
Hey, Ryan, I'm embarrassed to say I had a few issues with the background and only half my head was coming through. So
Not a problem. Not a problem at all. We've got a lot of books behind you. So that's, look, it's a great background. I love it.
Are those books real? Really? Is that?
You want the truth just among friends? No, they actually are.
Nice.
Books are candy for me, both just to look at them on a shelf and to read them.
Yeah, and I can imagine one of those, if you pull it down, opens up a door and a pathway down to some chamber.
Totally.
Nice.
Yeah, Chamber of Secrets. It's a Harry Potter book.
Ah, there you go. Well done.
Is Harry Potter on your bookshelf?
It's actually on my kitchen counter.
Oh,
because my youngest son's reading it.
Well, it's a good read for sure. And there looks like a lot of winners back there. But Alex and Shiv, I would love to turn our virtual stage over to you. We could sit here and talk books all day. We were going to talk puppies for a little bit in our last session, but we've got an objective here. And I know Alex is going to be steering our ship. So, I don't want to take any other time away from the two of you. And again, audience, please use that chat window down at the bottom of the screen there. Please use that Q&A box. We'd love to hear some of your questions as we're going to be live at the end of this session. Well, we're live right now. So please start to throw your questions in there as we move through this conversation. And Alex, I'll turn it over to you.
So yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Norman. I'm the Chief Growth Officer of Wavemaker. We're a WPP global media agency dedicated to driving growth for our clients. I'm pleased to be here with Shiv Singh, who's the Expedia Group's brand SVP and General Manager. Shiv has led a long-spanning career in marketing strategy, brand development, and brand innovation across B2C and B2B sectors. Shiv started his career at Razorfish, where he became global head of social and later led marketing globally at PepsiCo and published the book, Social Media Marketing for Dummies. Soon after, Shiv became senior vice president at Visa, where he was responsible for driving go-to-market strategies for some of the company's most disruptive innovations. Then Shiv became CMO of Eargo, a hearing aid manufacturing company that went public in 2020, and founded Savvy Matters, advising Fortune 500 companies and early stage startups on marketing and digital transformation, which also led Shiv to author the book Savvy. navigating fake companies, fake leaders, and fake news in the post-trust era, which is currently available on Amazon.com. So, Shiv, this is an exciting and extraordinary background that you have. It seems you've always been on the cutting edge of brand and digital innovation. So taking a step back, how did you get started in this business, and how did you end up in this field?
Alex, well, firstly, thank you for that very kind introduction, and also for throwing in the book plug. You didn't have to, but that was sweet of you.
I didn't say the price, or there's a 10% discount.
Whatever you want, you got it.
Nice.
So to answer your question, I wish, I could sort of share my master plan the way Elon Musk had his master plan 10 years ago, for Tesla. But the truth is that there has been no master plan. And this might not be the most inspiring or provocative thing to say, or, best advice. But I actually feel I've benefited the most by not having a master plan, and instead by just moving to things that are interesting to me, that I feel would be most impactful, and really taking it every, step by step, trying to see what's around the next corner and rushing there, and learning as much as I can as quickly as possible. And one example of that I'll share with you is, last fall, I was going through the interview process to join the Expedia group. And, the person who was interviewing me said, look, I have to ask this question. It might be a massive turnoff, but I'm going to ask it. And he said, travel is in a free fall at the moment. I mean, this was, during the year of COVID, and as a result, we're doing massive retooling, and there's a lot of ambiguity, roles changing, businesses changing. We're refiguring, just sort of the operating system of the entire business. Are you sure you're interested in joining? and my response to that was, call me crazy, but I'm the kind of guy who likes to run into fires. And while that can at times be career limiting, it's also led to the most fulfilling experiences for me, which translates into what might sound like a convoluted career trajectory, as you outlined.
Well, it sounds like you're the first responder of business. I think we need a card, a lanyard for that. So, jumping ahead, it's a pretty incredible movie you made, particularly at the time that you made it, right? So you joined Expedia in January 2021 at a time when the world wasn't yet ready for travel. So what did you see when you first walked in the door? What did you see then? And what are you seeing now in terms of where travel was and is going?
Yeah. So I firstly made the decision to join in the October timeframe, or early November, when there was not a vaccine out. So no vaccines had been announced. None of us knew whether we'd be in sort of the lockdown state for a few more months, or a year, or 2 years even. No one had any clue. But I believed fundamentally in the importance of travel, of how it brings people together, how it makes the world a smaller place, how it makes us think of ourselves more as planet Earth citizens versus, US citizens, or Democrats or Republicans, or, however you want to slice and dice, whether it's here in the States or elsewhere, all those, painful divisions that we're dealing with. So I believed, and have my entire life, I've lived and grown up in 3 different continents, that travel is a massive force for good. And this is going to sound kitschy or something, but what that translates into is the world needs travel. We need to understand each other. We need to explore. We need to, go into different cultures. We need to have those holidays and those experiences. We need to be confronting our biases and our prejudices, all of that. And whether it would take 3 months for travel to start recovering, or 6 months or 18 months, I was ready for that journey. So with that broader aspiration in mind, I was very comfortable with making the plunge into the Expedia group. Now, in terms of what did I see when I joined was, by the time we got to February, it got really interesting because we could see round the corner. We could see, vaccines getting deployed. We could see people's mind shift towards travel changing. People were vacation deprived. The research was showing more vacation deprived than they've ever been in their lives. And they were starting to think about what we call revenge travel, making up for lost time. Because all of a sudden, like in my case, I realized, oh my gosh, I've missed a summer of travel and I only have 5 more years or 6 more years with my 12-year-old before he goes off to college. And I want to make my next set of family travel all that more special. So we started to see that. The interesting challenge and what's been so exciting at the same time is how do you time it perfectly? How do you turn on your marketing machine? How you upscale your spends so that you're capturing that demand, but aren't too ahead of it and wasting your dollars or behind the curve and sort of giving up share to your competitors. And that's been a fascinating exercise over the last several months as we think about what's happening in the US versus continental Europe versus the UK versus Japan versus Australia versus India, all over the world. So that's been I would say, a really big focus. That's sort of one big piece to it. The other big piece that has also been really interesting is, and I touched upon this briefly, is how we think about travel has changed. It's more of a conscious choice. We're realizing life is short and we have to take advantage of it. And as a result, we're looking for those partners and those brands who can really enable us to have those better travel experiences. And that's what led us to relaunching the Expedia brand in April with the new tagline, Expedia, it matters who you travel with, because we wanted to respond to that moment very strongly, very directly, that we're going to be your ultimate travel companion through the entire journey and every journey that you're on. So that was another piece to it. We took this moment to recognize we had a new set of consumer behaviors, a mindset shift, a massive mindset shift, and relaunch the brand and reintroduce ourselves in a different way.
Now, I love the concept of vacation deprived, and I also love the concept of revenge travel. I wonder who the enemy is in that scenario.
COVID.
There you go.
Clearly, COVID.
Because I would bet myself, and probably a source of many people's mental illness issues. But that being said, I think that we're all seeing around the world a need for us to go to travel and looking for the right source to be able to do that. So you talked about the shifting of consumer behaviors and attitudes around travel. Is the data telling us this or telling you this in your teams? What is the data implying in terms of the appetite across markets for that type of messaging?
Yeah. So we did a global study in December and January, where we really tried to understand how people were thinking about travel. And the study was, it was the 15th year we were running it globally, 22nd year since its beginning. And what was crazy about it was how glaringly sharp the data was, which was that it literally is like we had never seen travel deprivation the way we were seeing it. And that people were raring to get out of their houses and their homes and their apartments as soon as their governments and the health officials allowed them to do so, or as soon as they felt it was safe. And what this translated into then, it was really fascinating, is on specific dates, we literally saw a paradigm shift take place. And my favorite is March 15th or March 16th, when President Biden announced that 100 million vaccines would be available or were available now. That day showed a sharp, sudden jump in our business and also our competitors' businesses. But it was that macro moment of people raring to travel, getting that confidence that it was safe to do so, and then going and booking. And even if you were to search in Google Trends for travel or Expedia or something, you'll see that bump. It's mind-blowing.
And I think with your messaging, which is around kind of who you're traveling with, like take a friend, definitely helps your business, right? Because now it's not just one person booking your travel, it's two.
Yeah. Well,
clever.
no, yeah, totally. And the other piece to it is that the ultimate travel companion is Expedia. It's us, because we support you at every stage. Because the other piece with travel is we are, as we should be, much more sensitive to health and safety measures and stuff like that. And we're positioning ourselves and building our business around, we've got your back.
So how is the experience that you're saying it's so important to travel, which we all know? How is that baked into your business? Are you adding more services? What would you see as the biggest opportunity for Expedia in this space?
Yeah, I mean that's a whole nother hour that we could talk about it. But I'll share a few quick, really simple and important ones. Over the last few months, and we've put a lot of effort into communicating much more aggressively about specific features and services that hotel properties and airlines provide that are in the health and safety realm. A very simple example of that is, during the course of COVID, you were able to search an airline based on whether they kept their middle seats empty or not. Massively important. You would be able to search and filter hotel properties based on their health and cleanliness measures and protocols in place. You're now able to go to Expedia and very quickly, just with a few clicks, figure out, are you actually allowed to travel to Australia as a US citizen? When you do get there, would you be required to quarantine? If you have an issue, who do you call, and how we as Expedia can help you? So it's a whole range of product features, messages, etc. Now, the one thing I would add to that is it's a multi-year journey. It doesn't happen overnight. We also, as does the rest of the travel industry, have lots of customers who had made cancellations, got travel refunds, and it's a complex industry, and there's a lot of sorting through that's happening there. But this is the journey that we're on, and this is how we want to serve our consumers and our travelers in the future.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I mean, I think it's a huge impact on travelers. At the same time, it sounds like it's a huge impact on the businesses that serve those travelers, the hotels, restaurants, and all of that. So it sounds like you're just sort of lifting the entire category up to a point where you're making it more comfortable to travel. At the same time, you're providing more opportunities for venues that are taking responsibility to get more visibility and more business.
Absolutely.
So you at Expedia, you're sitting between the brand communication and performance. I mean, you're pure play business at Expedia, and you have access to all the data, basically. So where do you find the balance between the two, and where do you find that working the most in your day-to-day business?
Yeah, so the Expedia is a really exciting business, and it's a business that, it was established 25 years ago. And when it was established, it was built on the idea that instead of having to talk to a travel agent who'd be across from you and you wouldn't know what they were typing into their computer and what they would be seeing, and then they would figure out what they wanted to tell you, all of a sudden, everything was in your hands, in your complete control. We sort of turned the screen so that the consumer was completely empowered. The business has been built over the last 25 years, sort of as the ultimate direct-to-consumer brand. It was the biggest DTC brand before the DTC acronym existed in many respects, and through tight partnerships with Google and others. So the kind of sophistication and the thinking and the measurement on the performance marketing side is just phenomenal, and I have huge respect for everyone that develops that. The other piece to it, though, is we know, and this was part of our brand relaunches, as we enter the next chapter of Expedia's growth, that's not going to be enough. We want to move up the value chain, be there for our travelers at every stage, from the point of inspiration to the point of purchase, to when they're on their trip, to when they return back home. And for that, it means, doubling down on building a really powerful, emotionally rich brand, even more than what it has been in the past. And a lot of great work has been done historically. So when we launched the new positioning, it was the largest brand investment in 5 years. And it was 5 years because calculating what it was before that was difficult, which is why we didn't say ever. And the fascinating piece, and this is what we're constantly interrogating, is how is the brand and the performance side working together? How is the symphony performing, not the sub-functions of marketing? And how is each, and especially on the brand side, serving to truly lift all boats? And what I learned from so when I was at Pepsi, I learned all about what it means to build great global brands, and same with Visa. But what I picked up when I was at the DTC startup was you can actually use brand to influence short-term performance metrics. If you think about it really carefully, if you have the right creative, the right insights, and you plan your media really smartly. So in our world, we try to bring that together, and they should never, ever be two ships passing in the night. And the only way to avoid that happening is to make sure that everyone understands the other side well enough and feels vested and has a stake in it.
That's fascinating. I love the symphony versus the sub function. I'm gonna have to steal that one. So with that being said, I think everyone in the audience has probably seen one or two or more of your ads on various different mediums. What would you say that you're the most proud of? I know it's hard because it's a lot of great stuff, but is there anything that stands out for you as the most interesting?
At Expedia?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, let's start there. Then if you want to expand on that, by all means.
Yeah. So, I've only been at Expedia 6-7 months, so there's not that much work out, but the team's done awesome stuff. I'd like to reframe the question and talk about what program. And for me, it's two. It's a brand relaunch, and through the brand relaunch in April, we launched this wonderful campaign with Rashida Jones, really demonstrating how we're the ultimate travel companion and have our travelers back. We partnered with Joe Jonas to further demonstrate how we give a helping hand to travelers. And it was a phenomenal grassroots PR effort where we actually had, working with Joe Jonas, a 3D version of his hand printed. And we gave it to 500 influencers who just went sort of bat crazy about it, because they're like, why am I getting this? I'm going to see if I have it here. But they're like, why am I getting this? But the story really resonated because it was all about giving people, and symbolically, a helping hand as they get out into the world and travel. So that's a second example. And then more recently, we ran Expedia Travel Week. It's our equivalent of Amazon Prime Day, because we knew travel demand was coming back and we wanted to give the best to our travelers. So lots going on.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely great and slightly creepy, but I'm sure the influencers and the internet had a fun time with that. I'm actually a huge fan of the Expedia Travel Week. I think it feels like it's your version of Amazon's Prime Day. Where whatever that anxiety that you mentioned earlier before, and that revenge travel. I want to press buttons. I want to buy something. I want to instead of buying new pair of sneakers on Amazon, I might just actually buy a trip to Miami. I don't know. But are we going to start seeing that every year? Is this going to be a recurring promotion that changes the way that we think about when we book travel?
Alex, time will tell.
I'm sure you'd want that. So the answer to that question is, of course. So you yourself are an avid traveler. I mean, you've lived all over the world. So in a lot of ways, when you joined, it sounds like when you joined Expedia, it sounds like it could have been your dream job, right? Now that you're basically the gatekeeper for everyone else's travel experiences, when you've had travel experiences of your own, when you were bouncing around the world, I mean, that'll get you in trouble with your company. But what app did you use to manage all that?
Yeah, so I look, great question. And when I was interviewing with Expedia, what I did was I went through my email, and God bless Gmail. I've been using Gmail since it first came out in 2003, and that's a wonderful search engine. And I wanted to see who I had been making reservations with, outside of corporate travel. And did I have a true, long-term existing relationship with the Expedia group? It's a lot of different brands in the family. And I found that it was in 2003 that I first booked with an Expedia group brand. And it was the Orbitz brand, which is also owned by the Expedia group. And then have sort of bounced between Expedia and Orbitz over the years.
Oh, that's funny. Well, okay. Well, that's job security right there. That's you talk about.
Yeah, I take that into meetings. Hey, I'm in this. I was driving revenue a long time ago.
There you go. A long time listener, first time caller. So, you speak about Gmail, and obviously, there's a lot of questions around how much Gmail knows about you. And I know that you personally have shared your thoughts publicly and through your book about the need for greater responsibility among marketers in the digital age today, and the lack of trust from consumers as we're peering in, as brands in some cases are peering into people's lives and their behaviors. So tell us more about your point of view and your perspective around the responsibility of us marketers, and then on one hand, and the trust that is either being lost in some cases by consumers on the other, and what we can do to fix it.
Yeah. So this is really hard stuff for me because, the impetus for me to write this book, and I actually co-authored it with a clinical psychologist who happens to coincidentally also be my wife. But the genesis was we were having an after dinner glass of wine, and we were just talking about the world our children would inherit from us, from all of us. And what struck us was, and this is, going back a year and a half ago, is that we were at serious risk of handing a world to our children that was going to be far worse off than the ones we've all gotten from previous generations. And then we started to unpack that further. And this conversation was actually in 2018. And we realized and saw that misinformation and fake news was really even bigger and worse than COVID in some respects. Now, I don't mean that flippantly, because there's been horrible, tragic deaths and issues around COVID, but it's also causing immense damage. And then through the course of our book, we also started to unpack that a bit more. And what we saw was, at least what I saw, is that marketers, given how much we spend in the media ecosystem, we fund the platforms, we fuel the ways that misinformation and fake news, whether it's about vaccines or it's about, political leaders or about whatever it may be, that travels. And that's led us to the thinking that business has a much greater responsibility than it's willing to accept, and we all need to do more. And then, and this is where I always hesitate to say this, because I feel it's the point where I start to lose potential readers and friends, is we as marketers, because of how much money gets spent through media, we're absolving ourselves of our responsibility. because we fund the ecosystem, and we don't talk about these issues at all. I subscribe to all the trades. I am in a whole bunch of marketing conversations, and we very, very rarely hold each other accountable, and I think that's unfortunate. And it's the advertising ecosystem that funds so much.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? I mean, we create the beast that creates us, that creates the beast, and so forth and so on. So, no end in sight. I think we have a lot of, and so thank you for introducing that provocative and topic of which people can debate and discuss. And so we will be talking about this for months and perhaps for years to come. But thank you for getting that, at least that started. So as a marketer, as a traveler, as a citizen of the world, you clearly have a point of view on where we're going now that the world is seeing the end closer than the beginning from the pandemic. And so where do you think that we're going to be in next year or the next 2 to 3 years?
In terms of travel and how
we feel about it.
Yeah. Look, when you're a parent and when you, if you're wired the way I am, even though it may not sound like time, you have to believe in the future and have hope. So first and foremost, travel is coming back, and it's coming back in a massive way. We're already seeing it here in the States, and it's spreading around the world. I mean, just try renting a car or going to a major city airport, as I was in just yesterday, and you see it's coming back. And as long as we around the world keep the Delta variant under control, and the wonderful pharma companies keep staying ahead of the COVID with the vaccines, travel will keep coming back, and that's incredibly that's good. And then I'd say more broadly speaking, I mean, here in the States, it's been a hard year in many respects. We had what happened with George Floyd. We had what happened on January 6th. We had what happened in, when the pandemic hit us. These are all really massively important awakenings, which exposed the sort of the fissures in society and the challenges and the different points of views, etc. But at the same time, there was also a lot of incredible good. And I'll go back to the example of, what these biotechs and the pharma companies have done, getting these vaccines out, vaccines that would take a decade normally were rolled out in 6 to 8 months. They were operating like startups. There's phenomenally good stuff happening as well. And with the important awakenings and some of the good stuff, we all have to believe that things are only going to get better in the future. Travel is one little piece of that. As we connect around the world, we hug our friends and families when we meet them. But we all have a responsibility. And I mean, here in the States, it's the entrepreneurial spirit that just makes great things happen. So I'm optimistic.
Well, I think a lot of us are, and obviously we're hoping that you are 100% correct, because everyone's looking forward to getting back into a plane, into a train, automobile, and or a boat, and do the thing. So
via Expedia, right?
Do you guys book boats?
Cruises, definitely.
Which, by the way, if anyone in the cruise industry would hear me say boat, then they would freak out. I guess it's ships, right? So it's a whole different story. Actually, a whole different level, right? And that's no rowboats here. So thank you for that point of view. And I'd like to just kind of shift gears a little bit, because I think because everyone sees a purple background for me, and we see basically a library behind you. You wrote 2 books. And it looks like you're an avid reader. So what are you reading right now?
Oh, this is, unfortunately, this is more in the depressing end. I don't know if you're ready for that. It does jive with our conversation though. But this is what's right in front of me that I'm going through. Twilight of Democracy, the seductive lure of authoritarianism and how it sort of moves across the world. My hope is that's not happening here and won't happen here, but it's still a very real conversation. So that's one book.
Nice.
And I feel, and this is what's interesting, Alex. We think about marketing as brand building and creating ads and performance marketing and search engine marketing and stuff like that. But one, we have a role in society that's broader as individuals, as marketers. And two, what I've learned, at least in my own career, is the broader the view I take on life, the better a marketer it makes me. The better I understand consumer behavior, the better I'm able to glean consumer insights and activate on it. And I subscribe to The Economist. That's my best marketing trade publication in a sense. So that's Twilight of Democracy, one book that I'm reading. I typically go through 2 books at a time because the way my brain works, and I like to shift. The other book is I'm reading is the new Amazon book that's out, Amazon Unbound, which is the inside story of how they've just grown so massively, and it's a study in culture and growth and also maybe a bit of corporate aggression.
There you go. Well, that's very impressive. I don't know anyone that can read 2 books at the same time. For me, I have like 10 books that I've been reading at the same time for the past 5 years. Okay, so it's a journey. It's no destination in sight. But I love the fact that you say having a broader view on the world makes you a better marketer. At the same time, you also had mentioned earlier in the session about how seeing the world also gives you a very unique perspective. So in some respects, if you use Expedia, you can be a better marketer. I'm going to help you with
totally.
I'm going to help you with the advertising campaign.
I sort of feel now, instead of sending you 1 bottle of wine, I need to send you 2.
Oh, there was
Very
1
well
bottle in the works. Okay, well, look, I whatever I can do to get myself invited to dinner is my goal. So if you were to look back to your younger self, as we round out the session, what advice would you give your younger self with all the stuff that you know now, that perhaps may have made it easier for you or may help other people on their journey who are on this call?
Yeah, I would say a few things. The first is, and I don't think anyone really shares this, at least it wasn't shared with me, which is that, going through life it's full of choppy waters. And when you hear from someone who's successful or at the end of their career, whatever it may be, you look at where they are and you're like, wow, that was, an amazing career that went straight north. But the truth is, every career and every life is up and down, and eventually you get higher and higher, but there are ups and downs. And how you respond and behave in those down moments is actually what determines whether you're able to grow further and develop. And we I think talk a lot about what success looks like and how to treat success, but I think we need to focus on how do we respond and behave in times of failure. And that goes to character, that goes to grit, that goes to taking the long view, that goes to embracing empathy in your own life and how you take care of yourself and how you support others as well. It's all of those pieces. So get ready for the failures as well, and how you live through those failures is what will define you. That's one part of it. The other thing I would say is we all have greater responsibility, greater influence, greater control, and greater potential impact than we realize. And that's whether you're a 19-year-old, leaving high school, or a 22-year-old after undergrad, mid-career 35-year-old, or a 50-year-old, whatever it may be. But be mindful of that, and we can do more and give more and we should never let that opportunity go.
Here. I think, that last point resonates with me for sure, because I feel like mentoring, but to me is mentoring, and I myself would give more or encourage people to mentor more to move the ball forward for everyone collectively. So I want to thank you. I think we're just about done with our session, but I wanted to thank you for the time and for the insight. I also want to thank our audience for dialing into this, and I also want to thank Expedia, right? Because I think that they apparently have got obviously have gotten a great marketer running the helm for them, and look forward to the future success of the business. I have already downloaded Expedia app actually, but I had it Orbitz already, so just
which is great, all in the family.
There you go, and look forward to traveling with you again soon.
Great. Thank you so much, Alex. And I just want to mention I'm part of an amazing team and lucky to be on it. A lot of great leaders.
Awesome. Very great. Alex, thank you for taking us through that conversation. Shiv, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Definitely excited for everyone to get back out and travel for sure. As I've just started to resume travel here myself. So appreciate all the help.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Cheers.
Awesome. And so to our audience, thank you very much. We are at the end of our day right now. We have concluded, but just want to let you know that all this entire session is going to be available on demand on our YouTube channel. So you can go check it out. If you missed anything, or if you want to get a recap of anything, or just go back and replay the entire thing from start to finish, you know where to go for that. We are going to have another live cast happening next week. Happening on July 19th, and that is for the future of Hispanic marketing. And that is our virtual summit at 12:40 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to have Pepsi, the U.S. Consensus Bureau, AARP, Burger King, and a handful of others joining us. We hope to see you there. And if not there, at a future one, maybe virtual, maybe in person, whatever it is, we'd love to see you as our community continues to grow. So have a terrific day and enjoy your weekend. And we'll